In a foreign village in Cambodia, nestled between dense jungles and rolling hills, life advanced at a slow and steady pace. The villagers were simple folk, content with their farms and their families. However, on one fateful day, everything was shattered by a sudden attack from a ferocious predator. The tiger had prowled through the village, snatching up a small boy in its jaws and disappearing into the jungle. The villagers were in a state of shock and panic, for they had never seen such a brazen attack before. They'd worried for their safety, wondering if the tiger would return to claim more lives. But hope was not lost. They believed that the kid might still be alive, and so they quickly rallied a search party consisting of their most skilled hunters. The group was led by a weathered old man named Masood, who had hunted in these jungles for decades and knew its every inch. The hunters set out in the morning, their hearts heavy with grief and anxiety. The jungle was thick and foreboding, with tangled vines and towering trees that blotted out the sun. The search party moved through the jungle with the caution of a wounded animal, their senses on high alert. They scanned the undergrowth for any sign of the tiger or the missing boy, listening for the slightest rustle of leaves or snap of a twig. As they moved deeper into the jungle, they began to feel a growing sense of unease. Their eyes darted back and forth, searching for any sign of danger. It wasn't long before they came across the first sign of the tiger. They discovered a clearing where the grass was matted down and stained with blood. Masood inspected the area, his brow furrowed in concern. He could see that the tiger had made a kill here, but there was no sign of the boy. The search party pressed on, their spirits dampened by the realization that the tiger was still at large. They advanced deeper into the jungle, following the faint trail left by the predator. The trail led them to a small stream where they paused to rest and refresh themselves. It was here that they heard the first strange sound. It was a low rumbling growl that seemed to emanate from the trees. The hunters froze in fear, gripping their weapons tightly. The sound grew louder and more menacing, and soon they could see the source of the noise. The tiger emerged from the undergrowth, its golden fur gleaming in the dappled sunlight. It was a massive beast, with rippling muscles and gleaming fangs that seemed to glint in the shadows. The hunters stood frozen, their eyes wide with terror, but Masood was not one to back down from a fight. He raised his rifle and took aim, his hand steadied despite the pounding of his heart. The tiger roared and lunged, its massive paws striking the ground with a thunderous force. The group and the tiger engaged in a deadly dance with bullets and claws flying. It was a fierce battle, with both sides fighting for their lives. In the end, the hunters emerged victorious. They had managed to wound the tiger and drive it back into the jungle. They continued to follow the trail of the wounded tiger, their footsteps leading them deeper into the dense jungle. As they moved forward, the jungle thinned out, replaced by jagged rocks and steep cliffs. As they rounded a bend in the narrow passageway, they saw the entrance to the cave looming before them. Masood had no clue about its existence, but he thought it might be the perfect hiding spot for a wounded beast. The entrance was surrounded by a dense, thorny bushes, and the squad had to cut their way through to gain access. The cave entrance was wide and imposing, with jagged rocks jutting out of the ground like giant teeth. The hunters hesitated, their fear of the unknown causing them to pause, but they had to press on. The tiger was wounded, and it could still pose a threat to their village, so they steeled their nerves and entered the dark, foreboding cave. As they moved forward, they could see strange symbols etched into the walls. The symbols glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light, casting an ominous shadow on the ground. Everyone could feel the weight of the cave pressing down on them, its oppressive silence broken only by the sound of their own footsteps. As they continued, the cave became darker and more foreboding. The squad could feel a strange energy in the air, a sense of something ancient and powerful that lurked just beyond their reach. Every step they took seemed to draw them deeper into the belly of the earth, and the sense of anxiety grew with every passing moment. Suddenly, they heard a low growl emanating from somewhere deep within the cave. The hunters hesitated, their fear rising to the surface, but Masood was determined and he knew they had to kill the tiger no matter the cost. So they pressed on. As they moved forward, the cave began to change. The walls were not smooth, but instead were covered in strange, twisted patterns that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The group could feel the energy of the cave growing stronger, drawing them deeper and deeper into its clutches. And then they saw it, the tiger, wounded and bleeding, standing in front of a strange, pulsing symbol on the wall. The symbol seemed to be alive, its twisted lines writhing and pulsing with a life of its own. The tiger was standing and looking straight into them, and they knew they had to act. With a cry, Masood raised his rifle and fired. The bullet struck the tiger and it fell to the ground with a roar. The hunters rushed forward, their fear replaced by a sense of victory and relief. And then they heard it. A voice calling out from deep within the cave, a voice that was both seductive and terrifying. But as they moved through the passageway, something strange began to happen. The walls seemed to shift and change, the passages twisting and turning in ways that were impossible to predict. The squad became disoriented, their sense of direction thrown completely off balance. They walked for hours trying to find the way back to the surface, but every path seemed to lead them deeper and deeper into the heart of the earth. As they wandered through the labyrinth-themed passages, the squad became increasingly paranoid. They blamed Masood for leading them into the cave in the first place, and tensions began to run high. The sense of unease that had been with them since the beginning grew stronger, and soon it seemed as though the very air itself was alive with a malevolent energy. As they continued to search for a way out, they stumbled upon a massive glowing symbol etched into the walls of the cave. They could feel the energy of the symbol calling out to them, and so they moved closer. Their fear replaced by a sense of reckless abandon. As they approached the symbol, sinister things began to happen. Shadows moved in the corners of their vision, and the air grew thick with the scent of blood. Everyone began to feel the weight of fear and paranoia pressing down on them, and it wasn't long before they turned on each other. What started as a few whispered arguments escalated into a full-blown fight as they turned on each other in a desperate attempt to survive. Masood tried to stop them, but he was quickly overpowered. One of the hunters drew his knife and lunged at Masood, slicing through his shoulder. Blood sprayed across the walls, adding to the gruesome scene that was unfolding before them. As the fight continued, some of the squad scattered deeper into the cave, their screams echoing through the twisting passages. The sound was bone-chilling, a sound that no human should ever have to hear. The remaining hunters were left to face the horrors of the cave alone, their fear and paranoia growing stronger with every passing moment. But as they turned to leave, they saw something that made their blood run cold. The symbol on the wall had changed, its pulsing energy now replaced with a life of its own. The hunters could feel a strange force pulling them back, drawing them deeper into the cave. It was then that the true horror of the cave was revealed. Shadows moved in the corners of their vision, and strange writhing tendrils of darkness began to emerge from the walls. The remaining survivors could feel the energy of the cave consuming them, twisting and warping their minds in ways that they could not comprehend. One by one, they fell to the darkness, consumed by the horrors that lurked within. And as their bodies crumpled to the ground, their screams echoing through the twisting passages of the cave, Masood knew that he was the only one left. He could hear the sounds of his fellow hunters echoing through the darkness, their screams and cries filling the air. But as he unknowingly ran deeper into the cave, his flashlight suddenly went out, plunging him into complete darkness. Panic set in as Masood realized that he was lost in the depths of the cave with no way to see or find his way back. The voice appeared again, a whisper that seemed to come from deep within the darkness. Masood resisted, trying to force the voice out of his mind, but it was persistent, growing stronger with every passing moment. For 3 days, he walked, his mind filled with fear and doubt. He resisted the voice, knowing that to embrace it would mean giving in to the darkness that lay within the cave. But it was a constant battle as the voice whispered and coaxed him deeper into the heart of the earth. At times, he stumbled across strange symbols etched into the walls of the cave. They pulsed with an eerie light, drawing him closer and closer, but he resisted, knowing that they were a trap, a way for the darkness to consume him whole. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Masood saw a glimmer of light in the distance. He ran towards it, his heart pounding with excitement and relief. He was the only one who survived. He could still feel the energy of the cave pulsing through his veins, a dark and ominous force that threatened to consume him whole. As he stumbled back to the village, he could feel the eyes of the other villagers upon him. They looked at him with suspicion and fear, as though he were a harbinger of the darkness that had consumed their loved ones. Masood tried to tell them what had happened, how the walls of the cave had shifted and changed, leading them deeper into the earth. He tried to explain how the glowing symbol had called out to them, but the villagers did not believe him. To them, he was a madman, driven insane by the horrors of the cave. In the end, they sentenced him to exile, forcing him to leave the village and fend for himself in the wilds. Masood wandered alone, haunted by the memories of what had happened in the cave. He knew that he could never forget the darkness that had consumed him and his fellow hunters. But as he wandered, he began to realize that the true horror lay not in the depths of the earth, but within the hearts of men. He saw how fear and suspicion had torn his village apart, how they had turned on one another in a desperate attempt to survive.